The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Happy Friday, peeps.
Josh Shigala from the Standard.io,
Top of the morning to you, lad.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one. Warren Buffett revealed to be quietly making bank from Bitcoin and crypto amid price swings. Yes, Warren Buffett, the famed billionaire investor, has been one of the loudest Bitcoin and crypto critics amidst a U.S. war on Bitcoin. Now, as a crisis is varying to engulf the U.S. dollar, a new analysis of Berkshire Hathaway shows that the Oracle of Omaha's best performing investment this year is Bitcoin and crypto-friendly New Bank. Dan Eve, what do you think about Warren Buffett surprisingly profiting from Bitcoin?
Well, he's doing the classic diss it but own it, or at least not, own it by proxy, right? Because he doesn't actually, in theory, we don't know if he owns Bitcoin, but by owning a bank that's very much involved in Bitcoin, then he's making some profit on the Bitcoin swings, maybe I think he still is very much against it. So is Charlie Munger, right? His partner in trading crime, but I still don't think this is going to turn it around for him. He may make a lot of money off Nubank, especially when the halving comes round, but he's still not going to swing around. He seems kind of stubborn about it, right? To call it rat poison squared, you're pretty adamant that you're going to be dissing it for a long while. But he's doing the classic, Jamie Dimon, all the big names dissing it, and then finally coming round to it. Maybe if the ETFs go ahead, the spot ETF wants to go ahead. He might be less vocal about how much he hates it, but I can't see him buying it anytime soon. He seems like a stubborn guy, right? And he doesn't really like. He's kind of been vocal about in the past about tech stocks as well. So I don't see him turning around completely, but maybe he'll just continue to invest in it by proxy, by investing in companies that are into Bitcoin in some particular way.
Josh Shigala, this must be very painful for Mr. Buffett. His only good investment this year is a Bitcoin company.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of these things where I don't feel that I have no proof at all. This is just me being absolutely ludicrous. Hang on, nothing. Can't hear me.
We can hear you now, but it sounds like a different microphone. Try it again. Go ahead.
Oh, really?
Oh, now it sounds
good. Sounds good.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So, so the thing is that people like Peter Schiff, I think, actually use their clout to destroy Bitcoin and then buy it on the down. So basically to publicly denounce it, buy it, either him or his son. If you have massive clout and it's an unregulated market that you can do stuff with, why wouldn't you, if you don't have a soul, do that? You just for your own gain, because you have that clout. Like, there's two things that can move the market: large amounts of crypto, like whales, or whales in terms of influence. And so, yeah. Schiff use that. Now, I think you're right, Dan, that Buffett isn't in that camp. I think he literally just doesn't understand it. What he does understand is balance sheets and profit margins and books. And so he'll look at the books of a business and go, I think that could do something. He's got to understand, he might not think that crypto has value, but obviously he can see that people do believe it does. So I remember pitching to some VCs about Voltoro with Bitcoin and physical gold exchange, saying, look, you might not think the banks are going down, but there's many, many people that do and want a solution for that. To which I had a couple of people say, "Well, I actually do think the banks are going to go down." So, yeah, but yeah, I think Munger is Munger and the rest of them. They're just too old to understand it. You know, I'm too old to understand even bloody Spice Girls. You know, like I'm just or you know the new pop sensation. I'm too old to understand bloody TikTok. How's that, folks? I mean, it's just, yeah. So there you go.
Maybe he's also of the opinion that, you know, he's like, I don't want to own Bitcoin, but I want to make money off of the mugs that are trading it. You know, I'm not stupid enough to own it, but I'll make money off the people trading it via the fees, and, you know, by owning a bank, shares in the bank.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
I think there's a couple of possibilities. One thing, it could be just like a person that wants to invest in environmentally friendly stocks, but you have so many stocks you can't keep track of them. So you accidentally buy some coal. So he might not even know about this. And then there's the possibility that he does know about it and he knows he's breaking his principles because he hates Bitcoin and he's such a big critic. But someone told him this company was going to be really good. And he's got that greed aspect where he wants to make 30% instead of 20%. And if he has to buy a Bitcoin bank to do it, he's going to get his 30%, right?
Yeah. But it's a nice sign to see that this company did well, because it's not always, you can buy Bitcoin companies that even in bull markets fail. And I guess we saw that with FTX, but that was on the scam level. There are legitimate business that just don't have a product market fit, and so yeah.
Well, it's a nice introduction for Mr. Buffett into the market. Like, he had a nice experience. He invested in this company. He made money, more money than he made on any other investment that year, which some people would say, hey, maybe I should circle back, look at this Bitcoin thing. Maybe I made a mistake there, but maybe not Mr. Buffett. He is very, very old, much like Mr. Trump, who famously doesn't use email. He's from another generation. Doesn't you and your kids and your computers, your computer money. And why should he care? Why should he care? Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
I just blurted out an old man yelling, what is this bird? Goddamn email a little bit.
And truly, like, he should be retired somewhere. He should not have to care, especially when he knows that the true and most honest predictor of all of Bitcoin truth is right here in my hand. How upset must Warren be when he cannot hold such a thing in his possession and know the answer? How? For the exit question, Dan Eve, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower? Keeping in mind that you're competing against this orb of truth, this everlasting, this bald source of predictive power. It knows all about the triangles and the Bollinger Bands and the Bollinger Balls. It knows everything.
All of it. It's like,
oh, sorry. I blipped, didn't I? I came early.
Predict, Dan, higher or lower?
Yeah. Everything's been too negative recently. We're going up.
Up, Josh Shigala, higher or lower?
Higher.
And now we'll ask the magical Bitcoin predictor ball, which can be hard to see. Might have to hold under a light here. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? And it says, cannot reply now.
Whoa.
After
all this time as well.
Syntax error.
Cannot predict now. Yes, that's an unfortunate result there from the 8 ball. But
after such big ups, such big ups,
so much time waiting for me to come home to the correct 8 ball.
That was your blue screen Bill Gates demoing Windows moment.
That was it, man. You can't. They argue with a ball of truth, and it's just going to tell you what you want to hear. So
that's it.
Cannot predict now. We're moving on to issue 2, Sam Bankman-Fried trial, week 2. We've learned this week that Caroline Ellison testified that Thai prostitutes were involved in an attempt to regain access to $1 billion of Alameda funds that were frozen by the Chinese government. What? We also learned that, what's her name? Carolyn and Sam illegally kept the price of Bitcoin below $20,000. I'm not sure it was illegal, but they definitely did it. What? And Sam Bankman-Fried, they played a stunning audio recording at the trial where Carolyn Ellison told her company how they had lost billions of dollars and that it was someone else's money. Josh Shigala, what do you think about week 2 of the very exciting Sam Bankman-Fried trial?
Yeah, it's fascinating. But I mean, one thing that I find really annoying though is why do they keep just referring to her as Sam's girlfriend? Like, she is just as culpable as Sam, as far as I can see, allegedly. I better put that in there. But like, it's one of these things where I think they're really setting this Sam guy up massively by like directing every bit of blame at him, which he should. I'm not saying he shouldn't, but come on. What about putting some of these VCs also in front of the stand to blame? Because they're the ones that are meant to do the due diligence. They're the ones that are meant to sit there and go through his books and see if it's a scammer. Because it's apparently all of these naive retail folks got burnt. And last week we talked about this, like we don't know any, which is also strange. If you've been burnt retail by FTX, please leave a comment in the under the YouTube video, because I would be interested. I know that they're out there for sure, but I'm just wondering how many compared to, like, was this all huge, massive whale? What's his name? Some of the celebrities and all this VC capital. Was it those guys that got mainly burnt, or was it retail, or was it a mix of both? But anyway, the other thing that's really strange, and I don't want to spout conspiracy theories here, but every time there's an assassination, they always stick the middle name in there. And I don't know if Bankman is actually a middle name or if it's a two-name last name.
It's a hyphenate, with his mother being Barbara Fried and his father something Bankman.
Combo.
Oh, I see. So yeah, because so it was always like every person that assassinates someone, they put their middle name in there, not to confuse him with someone else that might have those two names. And,
it would be a disaster if John Smith assassinated someone and every John Smith in the country was like, "I didn't do it. Leave me alone, jerks."
Yeah, but then we have like the social media of PewDiePie just putting out that every Karen is a Karen. So poor Karens.
Well, you're all over the place there at the end, Josh, but I do agree with you that there's no grown-ups around. I read recently people are looking at the Michael Lewis book and they're talking about how, there were no grown-ups. There were just these kids that were like 25 to 30 years old. That's grown-up. They can drink, they can smoke, they can join the army. They're grown up. They went to college, they learned all this stuff. They're in polycule, like Dan said. They're in complicated relationship structures that I think few of us have ever attempted or even considered. So yeah, they were grown-ups. That's the thing that I'm tired of, is this idea that they're not grown-ups. And also I've enjoyed all the reviews of Michael Lewis's book. He famously wrote Moneyball, The Big Short, many other finance books, but he seems like he's come down wrong on Sam. He had a book where he had a genius on his hand, and then at the end, the genius turned out to be a fraudster, and it doesn't seem like he rewrote the book to remove the fraudster. And as I said, the book also doesn't focus on any of these retail investors or this great loss, which must have been felt by somebody. I think maybe retail investors in other countries, perhaps, being the reason we don't know them. Or people that were drawn in by the advertising who had never bought crypto before. Although, again, the hilarity is that the Larry David advertisement says not to buy. Larry says don't.
It's so good. So Larry just lucked
in
out on
hindsight,
that one, didn't he?
He really dodged a bullet. Yeah. Dan, Eve, what do you think about SBF, the trial, the audio tape of Carolyn Ellison, and as well as all the other stuff?
Well, it's really blowing it out the water that he was this kind of innocent guy that tried to do good and just slightly messed up, right? There's a lot of huge kind of big news breaking items, right? From trying to scam the Saudis to trying to keep the price of Bitcoin down to trying to bribe that, or I think successfully, it sounds like they successfully bribed Chinese sort of officials with $100 million to release $1 billion.
There's one more thing in there, Dan. They had often talked about how Sam had this like Honda Civic, and I was like, you could trust him because he drives a normal car. In one of the articles I read, it said that previously they had normal company cars, like nice cars leased from, a fancy company. And then Sam had the idea that they should drive lesser cars and downgraded himself and Caroline to a Honda Civic and a Ford Tempo or whatever it was, two normal cars. So even that was fake. Even that was artifice. It was acting. It was putting on a front.
Yeah.
And he fooled lots of people. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, Dan.
No, it's a good point. The whole thing was just a facade that he put on, right? It's almost like this effective altruism was literally all orchestrated just to be able to pull off the most elaborate scam in history. And to scam so many different people, from officials to the Saudis, to the Chinese government. Also the fact that he tried to get the regulators, right, to continuously trying to put the regulators on Binance specifically, really sort of underhand. So he's playing that game where he's paying off all these senators in the government, both Democrat and Republican, and he's using them to try and get them to put pressure on the SEC to investigate Binance when he was the one doing all the most shady stuff. So Binance is, they're obviously not the most clean in as we're seeing recently, but compared to SBF, they have kind of no real news like this, nothing that's broken, that's anything as bad as the individual things on this level. The Thai hookers, I mean, that's just crazy. So yeah, I genuinely can't wait for the documentary. It's going to be amazing.
Well, and we have to assume that Binance, at least at its basic level, is set up properly, right? We don't think that Binance is taking customer money and using it to pay Tom Brady for advertisements. And yet still, after knowing that, Michael Lewis continued with his book and put it out and defended him on 60 Minutes after knowing that, like, from the beginning, they'd been mixing customer funds. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, this is how powerful cognitive dissonance is. And it really plays out here. And what that is, for those that don't know, is it's a psychological phenomena where if you invest a lot of time into a concept and then get new information, most people find it very, very hard to pivot on a dime or pivot even on a large circle in terms of their opinion of that thing that they've invested a lot of time into. And so, especially if they've gone around talking to people about it already, because they then don't want to look stupid. And the Nigerian scam famously takes advantage of this because people invest a small amount of money into it, then the bigger amount and bigger amount. And if you've ever talked to anybody that's fallen trapped to one of these sort of scams, they'll blatantly tell you in the face, it's not a scam. And they'll argue till their face goes red or green or blue, whatever. And then they'll stop talking about it, but they'll keep investing because they're now starting to get embarrassed about how much money they're putting in, but they believe they're going to get the billions of dollars that the prince left. So this is the same for the author, that he invested a lot of time with Bankman-Fried, and he basically then didn't want to change his opinion because now he looks stupid. And so this phenomenon is extraordinarily powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. The thing is, it's so hard to admit when you've been scammed, right? It's like the thing of admitting when you've got a problem. Like, the first step of overcoming a problem is admitting you have one, and people just they find it impossible to go back especially after bigging something up so much. And if they're shilling it to their friends and they've probably got a lot behind it and they're just wishing in their hearts that it turns out not to be true, but it's actually true.
Yeah, like the vaccine, just total scam.
Well, I'm just surprised that this is what Michael Lewis wanted, that he wanted to write a book about a genius who is actually a genius. If you look back at Walter Isaacson's biographies of Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, both of them, not intentionally, but as the books turned out, he kind of punctures the genius mold. He says, yes, they're a genius at this, but they're bad at this, but they screwed up this, and all of those things. In the same way, Sam Bankman-Fried, wouldn't you think Michael Lewis would be like wanting this to come out, wanting him to have flaws that make him a genius, but a tortured genius? What do you guys think, Dan?
Yeah.
Have you? Well, I assume so. And you've read his book, right?
I've started the first couple chapters. There's a lot going on.
Okay,
But I've read
so
two or
probably
three
doesn't.
reviews now, so it's stacking up.
It doesn't
Not great
contain
evidence in his favor. So
right, yeah, it doesn't contain any of these revelations, right? These are, I'm assuming these are all kept under wraps because we would have heard about them by now. But yeah, it really does show that all that image that he was this really nice guy who just wanted to do good is just all complete crap. I'd be interested to see how he's dragging, if he ends up dragging other people down, right? Because as Josh is saying, Caroline, she was this co-CEO of Alameda. She knew about all these things. She's culpable. Yes, she's admitted to to the fraud, and she's becoming not an informant, but she's done the prisoner's dilemma, right? She buckled and snitched him in, just like the others have. But are they going to be punished as well, or are they going to get away with it from providing evidence? I wonder what sort of deal they have.
it's probably a pretty rich deal, but I do think they're going to try to make it look like Sam was the only one, although they all did wrong. They all knew what was going on. I think that goes well into the exit question. Exit question: will Sam Bankman-Fried get life in prison? Life in prison, Dan Eve, yes or no?
Oh, it's looking quite likely, I think, now, isn't it? Or at least so I my guess was 2x what the lady from what's it called, Theranos. Is it Theranos? Theranos. So she got, I think, 9 years, right? So I reckon he's going to get at least 18 years. So maybe not life, but yes, it's kind of.
We're seeing some numbers go up from last week. Josh Agala, number go up.
Yeah, I think proper goal in the chat here is right. I reckon 20 years after everything. Yeah, I mean that pretty much is your life over, isn't it? 20 years in prison. I remember being a kid, seeing these numbers come up and thinking, wow, these are such long times that people need to spend in a cage, like 20 years, and when you think about the fraud, you think, oh, that's not very long, but wow, it's pretty much a whole life, because once you come out after 20 years, what are you going to do? You just totally, the whole world's changed.
Oh, he'll have secret wallets though. He's got Bitcoin stashed and shitcoin stashed everywhere. That you wouldn't run a company like that without having a lot of secret pockets, magic pockets.
Mm.
Yes, but
after 20 years, can you remember?
Back together. What about the polycule?
Yeah,
we still don't know. No, I think it's a romantic idea that people are now floating that Sam could get life in prison because the evidence is so damning, because they have the audio tape, because, as Dan said, his number 2 guy who went to scout camp or boy camp or something with him, has been his best friend his whole life, even recognized his teddy bear Manfred when they found him in the boxes, when, they're having some kind of a Citizen Kane type moment. He ratted on him. He turned evidence. His girlfriend from the polycule, she turned evidence. They've got tapes. They've got everything. But no, it's not like he murdered someone. He just murdered the financial future of all these customers and all of their, work that they did. It's not as bad as murdering a person. So no, maybe the same. Let's put him up to equal to Theranos. He'll get 12 years and serve like 3. And remember, she managed to get pregnant, get married, have 2 kids, all kinds of stuff while she was getting ready to serve her time. And now is even arguing that she shouldn't have to serve time because she got pregnant, she got kids.
My favorite part is
Sam and Caroline. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, it's just that how the court artist made Caroline look like Sloth from the Goonies. Like in every picture.
Awful. Is there any hope for these kids? Just like Sam and Diane, do you think they could get back together? Dan, Eve, do you think Sam and Caroline could get back together?
Oh, she's got a new boyfriend already. That's hot off the press, right? I saw that on Twitter today. She's not going to be waiting for him. No. She's already got a new man.
Well, they were in a polygamous relationship, which isn't a very watertight relationship structure, is it? I mean,
it's airtight.
Airtight, yeah.
They
By
always
the
talk
way,
about it in the orgies. They're like, I'm gonna come visit you in prison. Like as soon as this orgy's over, like we'll never forget this.
Yeah.
The five of us.
Oh, Jesus. The poor new husband's got to hear all this constantly about her. The poor guy is just going to be. But it must be very stressy to be pregnant and think I'm going to prison and lose access to my child and stuff. It must be horrible, jeepers.
Yeah.
For the Theranos woman, I'm not sure. It's only alleged that she has feelings, so we can only just like tee out that. So it could be a very cold-blooded kind of like manipulative move to keep herself out of prison. Ha 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 ha! I'm getting pregnant.
Yeah.
No, but
By the way,
if Sam gets pregnant, all bets are off, right? He should be able to take the time off, get into a special prison. They make a movie about him with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, everything is possible if only men could get pregnant.
Yeah, no, can't happen. By the way, in the chat there, Crawford said he lost a lot of money with BlockFi. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Should have listened.
It is always horrible.
Paul didn't tell you to invest in BlockFi or FTX, but no,
this is why we created the standard as well, is that you can just lock it up into smart contracts instead of giving it to a third party. That's the key. But Bitcoin maxis in the chat would still keep calling people that develop on Ethereum scammers. So I don't know. Either you can go with a centralized authority like BlockFi, or you can lock it up in a smart contract that you hold the private keys to. I don't know. It might not be perfectly decentralized, but it's better than BlockFi.
Oh, but what about isn't the hot news now the BVM, right? Is it BVM, the Bitcoin? BitVM, right? The whole Turing complete layer of Bitcoin, right? So that now there's people going swinging back again, right? It always swings one way. They hate it when it's on Ethereum, but then it's on Bitcoin. They're like, see, haha, Bitcoin can do it now. But obviously, not everyone's liking it, right?
Not everyone.
It's just like Billy Joel said. He said, "Shades of gray wherever I go. The more I find out, the less that I know. Black and white is how it should be, but shades of gray are the colors I see." We have to move on now to the next issue. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got nothing but shorts with Dan's face on it. That's right, Dan's face, Dan's face, Dan's face, and Dan's face. That's what we're selling you here at the World Crypto Network. We've done extensive testing with artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence says, use Dan's face.
Oh, and look, it's got Barry on there as well. Oh man, this is the third anniversary of Barry.
And you're zooming into him as well. You're really
you're
crushing him with your fingers.
Oh, come on.
The thumbnails that
Crushing his little
this channel at random. We're stuck with. Moving on to issue 3, SEC deadline on Grayscale's Bitcoin ETF dispute approaching at midnight. Ooh, where's all my fun sounds?
At midnight, the SEC will decide on the Grayscale ETF.
That's just really too much over the top there. But it is almost Halloween. Let's go to Dan Eve. We talk about the ETF every week, a place for people to put their stock market money into Bitcoin that they won't let us have. Now they say the deadline is midnight. As I've said before, everything exciting happens on Friday. Will Grayscale be approved, Dan, or will they kick the can down the road again?
So this is, hang on a sec. This isn't the actual approval deadline by midnight, right? This is just the appeal for it to be reevaluated. Is that right? Or is it the approval?
It does look like if the SEC does nothing, Grayscale's application to convert its trust into an ETF formally returns to life. So yeah, this won't be approval yet.
Yeah, so it's obviously it's still in there, and whilst you've got all these other BlackRock, baying at the hands of the SEC now as well, they're probably putting a lot of pressure on. You've got who else was there? Well, there's loads, isn't there? Valkyrie have put their spot ETF in. There's 15.5 trillion or whatever it was. It hasn't grown much because obviously there hasn't been many new ones out, but it's coming soon, right? It's coming soon. Whether it's going to be a good thing or not, whether we sort of see a mini pump just before we get the decision. Some people get the news as a heads up, and then it does the dump again, just like when the futures one happened in 2017. Or whether it just moons after that, and we completely break the cycle, right, and do some sort of 5 spot ETFs go at the same time. Bitcoin suddenly moons before the halving, and then the moon is a mega pumpy dumpy halving. Pumpy halvening event, and we go to some crazy levels, especially with all the war around the world and stuff like that. Everything's going nuts at the moment. So is Bitcoin going to really become this worldwide, more stable monetary system as everyone's having these fights everywhere, and stability ends up being in Bitcoin specifically, because you can't trust anyone's currency because it's all being used to fight crazy ass wars. So yeah. I think they are going to definitely get approved, but whether Grayscale gets approved first, I don't know. I just see BlackRock pipping them to the post, right? BlackRock's too much of a big bro in the scene.
It could be interesting, though. People could see, Dan, that if they are approved to convert their trust to an ETF, then it means that other ETFs will be approved, which means that I should buy Bitcoin now so I can dump it on people when the ETF news does come out, which is how we know everything seems to work. So maybe it's not so much this approval, more like the idea that the SEC's come around. And even though Grayscale called them all these mean names and said that they were, your application is arbitrary and capricious, and you're kind of dog shit lawyers and all that. Like, they're just going to push that aside and be like, it's fine. You can just do business. We had a whoopsie on that email. That was a bad one. That was our John Gruden email. Josh Shigala, what do you think about this conversion deadline happening tonight, Friday, the 13th at midnight?
I think it's the SEC is becoming a toll gate. They're a toll gate. They're not a regulator anymore. They're just waiting to get paid every time these large funds want to do something. They give you ridiculous rules or reasons, that they don't even sometimes give you a reason. They just go, no. Oh, why? When we're not obliged to say. The entire banking sector is like that as well. If your bank account gets shut down as a Bitcoin business or a crypto business, they'll just say, we're not obliged to tell you why. What can we do better? Nothing. And then you're stuck. So I can imagine the pain that the SEC, that these people trying to put these ETFs together are going through. This is like that sort of ridiculous, arrogant answer coming back. So yeah, it's tough to try and get something innovative through the legacy system, and that's why DeFi is so freaking great, or Bitcoin itself, because it doesn't need it. It just does it. Build something better and let the legacy system become obsolete. That's my say. I don't care about this ETF. I really don't. I mean, yeah, it'll be a pump, but whatever. If some people want stock to move their stock money into ETF, just sell your stocks and go and put the money onto Kraken. What's your problem? Don't worry about it.
It's the pension funds, right? Pension funds and things like that, where you can't like just use your pension money to go and buy Bitcoin.
I'm not sure pension money should be spent on very volatile assets.
Especially after all these years. Maybe years ago when we were recommending it, it was fine. But yeah, it's been years and years of Bitcoin to put your pension funds in. But no, Josh, I think like all things, this episode reminds us of The Godfather. And as we all remember in The Godfather, I think it was Frank Sinatra's character, Johnny Fontaine. And the guy says, Johnny Fontaine would be perfect for this movie. That's why I'm not putting him in it. Bitcoin would be perfect for this ETF. It would make the price go up. Everyone would make lots of money. Everyone would be happy again. And that's why the SEC won't do it. And as we all remember, when this, Hollywood movie man said no to The Godfather, he woke up the next morning with his prize racehorse's head in his bed, covered in the blood. And one can only assume the SEC is changing their mind now, thinking, hey, maybe we should go along with this Bitcoin thing. They've got BlackRock, threatening to cut off our heads of our racehorses here. Maybe we should, let them have the movie. So everything.
And now you've got Warren Buffett actually making a profit from a Bitcoin company. Right.
Everybody's on board, and we're moving on to issue 4. Issue 4. Did you know if you can't read the New York Times, you can activate reader mode, and then you can read the New York Times? Yes, it's true. Issue 4. Across the U.S., Chinese Bitcoin mines draw national security scrutiny. Let's go to the rotating image. Yes, a Bitcoin mine in Cheyenne, Wyoming is declared too close to a military base. Other Bitcoin mines seem to be all over the United States near power centers, as if Bitcoin mining demanded power. Microsoft, a competitor to these Bitcoin miners, has tipped off the government about the Chinese who are running these Bitcoin mines. It may be time to put all these Bitcoin miners in camps. We're not sure yet. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Microsoft tipping off the government about the Chinese running data centers in the United States, mining Bitcoin?
It's so ridiculous. Even that footage is like some sort of war, footage from some drone. Look at these, dangerous, crazy. But look, and I don't understand why Microsoft is a competitor to it. It just see the whole story is written by a clown. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't think Microsoft would have reported. Like who at Microsoft? What? Bill himself, right? Like what a ridiculous, weird article. But if it's so dangerous, then the people of the US should be doing it themselves. That's for sure. They shouldn't let. They should let whoever, but they shouldn't let the Chinese just be the single parties here mining Bitcoin. And America has vast amounts of energy under its shelves. So there's no need for Bitcoin mining to be based overseas too much. They do have very cheap electricity, cheap power. So yeah, they get amongst it, get in there, do it, mine it, crunch those numbers, find those hashes, put the nonce in there, crunch it.
We all know that the only safe Bitcoin mining can be done on Amazon Web Services. Those servers are good. Dan, Eve, what about Microsoft and the Chinese Bitcoin miners?
That's a very obscure thing for them to do, right? Couldn't that be considered xenophobic, right? They're like, hey, is that the Pentagon? You've got Chinese people next door, and they're not making Chinese food. Like what? I mean, what?
Yeah.
They didn't say the CCP. They didn't say it's CCP related or something like that, right? There wasn't any link that they mentioned to the CCP specifically. They'd just be like, there's Chinese next door. Go and check them out, guys. So I think that's a pretty crazy move from Microsoft. Maybe they're just a bit what's the word? I don't know. Maybe they're just a bit they're that cagey about their secret data center that they think the Chinese are going to steal their secrets or something. And obviously there's a link to the Pentagon there, but it seems a bit odd, right, to go and like dob them in and be like, hey, have you seen the Chinese? I don't know. How did they do it formally? How did they raise that? Did they, again, doesn't mention the CCP. So you should be free to mine Bitcoin anywhere.
They probably filled out a form on the internet. What is bothering you today? Are they impersonating someone? Are they harassing someone? And the article also mentioned that the mining computers were also made in China.
Oh,
watch out, boys, watch out. So pretty exciting article from the New York Times, huh?
Wow. I can't believe it. The New York Times would write such trash. I mean, I can't believe it.
Mining fortresses here.
You got more pictures than me.
Safe.
So I know that the reader gives you more like some of the article, but I think it does cap it, right? Because there's only like 2 paragraphs in the cheapy reader version. I don't get any cool videos like you do. You're right.
There you go.
Oh, you gotta
So
activate.
Microsoft are complaining because they're taking lecky from the same source as their data centers. That's why.
Right.
So they might be because Bitcoin miners, like, notoriously, they can suck you dry of all power that you need. And so they're like, well, we've got Azure and all this stuff. If the Bitcoin miners take too much, we have to shut down that facility because we just can't pull enough. Or electricity prices in a true free market, electricity prices from that from that source will go up as they should, because there's now competition. So this is typical Microsoft. They don't like competition.
Well, they have more than 1,000 customers waiting to play MS Paintbrush online, and they're not going to pay. They want free access to Paintbrush, and they can paint with their friends, use AI to paint, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, come on, don't diss MS Paint. I still have a Windows VM on my Mac just so that I can use MS Paint for basic things like that seem way too complicated to figure out how they work in Photoshop and all that. So just have a VM.
MS Paint is nothing. I like Let's Make Signs and Banners, a program that does what it says. And you had the old rotor printers, so you could print them out and they'd be connected together, and you could make giant banners across your offices.
Oh yeah, nice.
Apple II.
Say happy birthday.
Apple II. But I think we're running out of time. It's time to go to predictions, story of the week, or Dan's sad stories about pigeons. Dan, do you have a prediction story of the week or a sad story about pigeons?
No, I don't know. Apart from the fact that every day when I walk my son to school now, I have to walk past the spot where I found Barry, and it makes me very sad. And I still haven't gone back into the garage and moved the box that I was keeping him in. So yeah, it was very sad. It's really difficult to say goodbye. Apart from that, it's been a pretty boring week.
As Halloween approaches, the possibility of a zombie Barry is on the horizon.
That would be cute, not scary.
It's not zombie Barry. Oh, jeez.
Josh Segala, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Yeah. So we've been the fastest growing protocol in terms of TVL on Arbitrum. The standard.io has been pumping it for 3 weeks in a row now. I'm amazed, just like everybody else. I'm like, wow. But I think it makes sense. We, the protocol offers 0% interest borrowing from yourself with 110% collateral, and you don't need to give up your private keys. So it makes sense. And funnily enough, wrapped Bitcoin is the most common used asset. So that's also fascinating to me. And the news is that our version 2 vaults should be released on Monday. And the version 2 smart vaults allow people to trade the locked collateral. So we launched with the MVP where you can just lock up and borrow. And now as of Monday with the new vaults, you'll be able to lock up like wrapped Bitcoin. And if you think Link or ETH is going to do better, you can trade over to that, or you can diversify. If you think, I want a diversified bunch of assets as collateral, or if the market's really shitting itself, you can trade to something like Pax Gold within your smart vaults and stop the bleed, and then trade back to Bitcoin, wrap Bitcoin when you're when the market's cruising, mooning. So it's going to be awesome. Please come and check it out. Help us out by giving us some feedback on the interface. Chuck a couple of bucks in there, test it out. It's really fun, and the early adopters are loving it so far.
Nice. Well done, man.
Yeah,
that's great,
awesome.
Josh. Just, we'll only get worried if you move to a tropical place like the Bahamas or Bermuda or Australia or something.
Start driving a Civic.
Yeah, start.
Well, that's the good. That's the good thing about this. You don't need to trust me because you can read the code. It's all free and open source. It's a bunch of smart contracts. I guess you do need to trust like MetaMask maybe as a wallet. You need to maybe trust. Yeah, that's about it. Really, you need to trust Ethereum isn't going to go down. But if you do think that those profiles are pretty good, then you know you don't need to trust BlockFi. You don't need to trust Alameda or FTX. We don't need this. We don't need no stinking badges. We just need smart contracts. And this is the cypherpunk dream, right? We don't need these centralized authorities. Why are we keep going back to them? Why? It's like, oh, let's invent Bitcoin, become decentralized, and let's use Tether. What? Hang on a minute. What? So we don't even know. Like they're like publicly don't show you what they've got in terms of reserve assets. They say what they have, but they don't audit it. And they fire the auditors before they get a chance to do it. And even if they did get audited, they'd hold the money in a bank, which is legally in fractional reserve. Don't trust centralized things. Just go decentralized.
Tether is the greatest story ever. I can't wait for the movie as well. Like you said, Josh, they didn't tell people where the money was. Then they made a huge and very risky bet with the money. Then because they were correct on the bet and sold, they have enough money to do anything they want forever now. So
yeah,
put it all in one risky bet. It's a real Eminem type situation. So
yeah.
But really we're running out of time. Thanks to everybody for giving us a thumbs up, subscribing down below. Thanks to the 34 new subscribers we got from Shorts. I'm sure they're all watching this hour-long program that their attention span is just perfectly lined up for after watching 30-second shorts. But thanks to everybody in the chat, joins us live every week. Dan, Josh, all the people, Marwi,
Tropical, and all the people in the chat. Thanks for dropping chat, man. Like it's really good to see engagement for us. It helps us out the channel. Yeah, so thank you.
Yep, put a comment in if you're watching this later on and you're all mad because you're not in the live chat. You're in the live comment section. It just lasts forever. So thanks so much to everybody for joining us. Until next time, bye.